Hi everyone, it's Sherry Vegas here, and in this Artist Tips Thursday, I'm going to be going over my top tips and tricks to make my silicone molds last twice as long. One of the ways you can add longevity into your silicone molds is by using a silicone oil. So these two molds here are quite good quality molds, but they are on the higher price point, but they are starting to get a little bit dried out. Drying out happens because obviously pouring the resin in, the resin does get to a certain temperature, and then as you demold it, it will start to strip that sort of moisture from the molds. And you can see, especially in pink molds, they start to go really light around the edge and get really dry. So one way that you can help add longevity to your molds is by using a silicone oil. Silicone oil is just going to add that moisture back in, and 1 to 2 drops. You don't need a lot. You want to then spread it all around. Make sure the full mold is completely coated in that silicone oil. And the silicone oil I've got is just from an art supply store. Really make sure, and then even up around the top, all over. And you can see there I've got like a nice little gloss happening with my silicone oil, and that's just going to help prevent this mold from drying out and breaking faster than what it should. Now eventually your molds will break no matter what you do, but there are tips and little tricks that you can do to add longevity. So you want to leave a really good amount of time before you do use your molds so the molds can soak in all of that silicone oil. Another thing that's going to affect the lifespan of your mold is heating them. So you'll use heat to pop bubbles or to create effects in molds, and using a blowtorch like this is great to pop bubbles, but it is quite hot and will damage your silicone molds faster, causing them to break. So if you need to use any sort of item, like any sort of heat source to pop bubbles, my recommendation is a heat gun. It's a lot more gentle. You can also control the heat, and it's going to add a bit more longevity to your mold over using a blowtorch. The blowtorches you can use if you're very sparingly using it, like a quick here and there, but you will find it so easy to end up burning and melting your molds. So I generally say it's best to opt to not use any sort of blowtorch at all, and if you have to use heat, use a heat gun and use it on a low heat setting. Now the next thing that's going to add longevity to your silicone molds is how you clean them. So in workshops, I generally will always clean my molds with alcohol spray. And the thing about using alcohol, it is very drying. It will completely sanitize them and get them nice and clean to use straight away very fast, because the alcohol will evaporate off the mold. So it means that you can use the mold again immediately. But because alcohol is so drying, it will strip that moisture out of the mold, which will then break your molds a lot faster. So if you can, what you want to do instead is use some soapy water. So this is just dishwashing liquid in some water. And then I just like to wash them, hand wash them. Definitely do not put them in the dishwasher. That is too hot for your molds. But I like to hand wash them. Get them nice and clean, get all that dust or dirt or any little bits of resin or whatever you use your molds for. And then once that's nice and clean, you can just let this air dry. Now just note that this has to be completely dry before you add any resin into it. So you definitely want to leave them for a good few hours, just air drying. And that way you're going to have a clean mold that's going to last that bit longer, because you are hand washing it over using the alcohol spray, which is very drying and will damage your mold faster.